All right, before Thanksgiving break, we were discussing the divide between the federal and state government. Differences between the two were vast, and sectionalism, the idea that people pledge allegiance to their region instead of the nation as a whole, was growing. You guys completed graphic organizers on the major causes of that divide, and we can see those ideas here represented by these images: the planter ideal, nullification, free blacks, the growth of cotton as being king, and the growth of plantations, abolition, Andrew Jackson, etc., etc. But the causes kept on coming, and the divide continued to grow. And this unit will begin with the first fighting of the era. Now, to be clear, the Civil War would not begin until the bombing of Fort Sumter on April 12th, 1861. The fighting, however, began about 7 years earlier with the passage of the Kansas-Nebraska Act. As you may recall, the Missouri Compromise, passed in 1820, limited slavery out here in the West. It only was the land south of this 3630 parallel. Now, it did admit Missouri as a slave state, which was north of that line, but it said that slavery would spread no further north. And to maintain the balance, it admitted Maine, a free state. 30 years later, because this is still not settled, the compromise is made so that the western territories of Utah and New Mexico are subject to popular sovereignty. They're allowed to decide for themselves the issue of slavery. That essentially means it's popular vote, a majority rule in these areas. Now, by allowing slavery to spread to these areas, they also allowed California to become a free state and Arkansas to become a slave state, continue maintaining that balance. But they also outlawed slavery in Washington, D.C., and some of our free states gained some things, some of our slave states gained some things. But the compromise is not over, because these lands were not empty, and this is left unchanged. Now, when I say these lands were not empty, I'm not talking just about not ignoring the Native Americans. There were countless Native Americans there as well, but manifest destiny is moving people westward. It's this idea that we, the Americans, have the right and the obligation, the duty to settle these western lands. And inside them are two major territories, Kansas and Nebraska. And this is going to be the exploration of the topic of our exploration today. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 led to increasing violence in the nation, particularly in these two areas. Kansas was titled Bloody Kansas or Bleeding Kansas because of the bad fighting. So our goal today is to answer the following question. In a learning statement, we'll be analyzing how the failure to politically resolve issues over slavery led to the outbreak of fighting. And as a question, it said, how did the government's decisions regarding the Kansas-Nebraska Act lead to the outbreak of fighting? So I'm going to ask you to close this video down and get back on our Zoom so that we can start discussing and looking at this through the lens of primary sources.